Hey guys, it's Godbars here, the self-proclaimed hip-hop historian, and this is the 180th episode of my series, where I grab a vinyl from my collection, talk about why I love it, what influence it has, and what its place is in the grand scheme of hip-hop. So this was that final holy grail that I kept referencing, which I felt I kind of had to save as the final pick for this group, considering just how impactful and momentous it was to the rap game. You could make a pretty strong argument for this being the single most influential LP in Southern hip hop, because this thing is just the epitome of gangster rap in every possible way. From the execution of the songs to one of the hardest album covers in the history of music. And just in case you aren't aware, this photo isn't staged. Bushwick Bill was actually heavily sedated at a hospital at the time of this picture due to him shooting himself in the head, which ultimately resulted in the loss of one of his eyes, as well as a bullet permanently lodged in the back of his head. Even with how tragic and dark these circumstances were, it couldn't have possibly provided a better cover, giving a perfect visual representation of the term "we can't be stopped." While Scarface, Willie D, and Bushwick Bill weren't necessarily the best of friends behind the scenes from what I know, they're one of those acts kind of like Pete Rock and CL Smooth, where despite the rocky relationships, the chemistry they shared through the music was undeniable. I mean, when it comes down to voices and personalities, there's very few, if any, perfect mixtures out there like Geto Boys, as every member was able to stay on the same topic while contributing their own unique views and input. The deep, commanding voices of Willie D and Scarface had a contrast to Bushwick Bill's lighter tone, which feels so organic that for me it's up there with the likes of Q-Tip and Fight Dog. As some of the best voice pairings in any rap group, Scarface alone was so influential that he changed the course of the genre, as it's impossible to deny the type of stylistic influence he had when it came to dudes like Biggie Smalls, Tupac, Ice Cube, or even Outkast. You could probably trace pretty much any contemporary rapper over the last 30 years back to Scarface and Geto Boys. I'm also not sure if there's any other act in hip hop that had as many drastic roster changes as these guys. I mean, the original first lineup for the group was comprised of Raheem, the Sire Jukebox, and Sir Rap-A-Lot. Then, when Rap-A-Lot and Raheem left, they added in DJ Ready Red, Prince Johnny C, and the backup dancer Little Billy, who of course would later become the rap legend known as Bushwick Bill. They released a couple singles under this lineup, but after their 1988 debut, Making Trouble, didn't really garner too much buzz critically or commercially. The label scrapped that iteration of the group except for Bill, and added in Scarface and Willie D, which would ultimately prove one of the wisest and most beneficial decisions in hip hop history. Willie D took a leave of absence after their magnum opus here, and his role was filled by temporary replacement Big Mike, who did a pretty solid job as that third member to Bill and Face, but was subsequently dropped after only one album with the crew as Willie D returned. I actually heavily enjoy that LP, which is 1993's Till Death Do Us Part. It would probably even make my top 3 favorite projects in their entire discography, but the subsequent return of the original Geto Boys lineup after this album catapulted their 1996 return album to success, with The Resurrection definitely being my second favorite LP to the Geto Boys name, solely behind the masterpiece we're talking about here. I actually discussed that reunion album in my first 10 uploads on the channel, so I'll link that one down below if you want to get some more background on Scarface, Willie D, and Bushwick Bill, as well as my personal relationship with their music. They would release 2 projects under this new lineup prior to We Can't Be Stopped, including 1989's Grip It on That Other Level, and the self-titled Geto Boys LP the following year in 1990. It was that album which would really start showing the issues with the rap music division at Warner Bros. Records, more specifically their distributor, Geffen Records, who didn't want to handle the marketing for the Geto Boys' third studio full-length here. This was apparently due to the controversial lyrics, which had come under fire by multiple politicians with walnut-sized brains, who used Geto Boys as the scapegoat for everything they found abhorrent about gangsta rap. Well, this resulted in the self-titled album being marketed and distributed through Giant Records, a sister label under the Warner Bros. Umbrella. It inadvertently gave the trio a concept to run with for their next LP, and it also proved the timeless phenomenon where if a bunch of old white politicians and discount parents try and dictate what the youth should or shouldn't be allowed to consume, all it ever does is ensure the thing's popularity with kids. Pretty much the worst thing you can do if you're someone who doesn't want the public to absorb a specific type of music or view a certain kind of movie slash television show is to tell all the kids and teenagers that they can't listen to it because it's so disturbing and evil. Of course, all that's going to do is make the average 14-year-old go, huh, I've always heard about the Ghetto Boys. I never really considered checking them out, but it must be pretty hardcore if all these government officials tried so hard to put a stop to it and bury the music. But this is one of those albums where so many circumstances lined up that you wouldn't be able to recreate it inorganically if you tried. Because from Bushwick Bill's "I Lost at His Own Hand," which is highlighted on the cover, to the campaign of ignorant politicians trying to wipe out their entire genre, the phrase "we can't be stopped" is embodied perfectly. However, all that context wouldn't have amounted to much if it weren't for how flawless the experience is musically and thematically. Even if you go into this classic without knowing any of the context behind it, you're made aware right away through the killer cinematic intro, where a narrator gives us a quick rundown of who the current members are and what their modus operandi was this time around. They hit this nail on the head even harder with the track that follows, where every member displays their personality and technical proficiency on the mic, and don't mince words about how the situation was affecting them at all. They're all trading fiery bars directly addressing the situation, as well as the hypocrisy at Geffen, leaving not a lot of room for interpretation. About every few bars or so, they trade the mic off to a different member, which is a style the group specialized in, and it further separated them from other groups that would just have solo verses of 16s, opposed to interweaving them the way Ghetto Boys did. They begin this flawless title track with Willie D kicking the door down, giving us "Let's Talk About a Scandal. The album Geffen found too hot to handle. Fucked up the minds of you and yours, the last LP by the Ghetto Boys." Then Bill takes the stage for a few lines, adding on with, "Can you believe those hypocrites would distribute Guns N' Roses but not our shit? And they say we're the racist act. Ain't that the pot calling the kettle black?" Then Face concurs through his first lines, rapping, "Man, fuck them hoes. We got new partners and got shit done regardless. 'Cause our fans are ever ready, down to die hard, around the globe to Fifth Ward." They switch off too often for me to highlight every time the mic is passed, but I do want to share some other awesome lines that pop up throughout this track, like, "Everybody seemed to be after us, even the manufacturers. Wouldn't press our disc. You know it wasn't fair. Fuck everybody who worked there." Or a personal favorite, which is, "You said the album wasn't coming out, fighter, but when it did, you couldn't find your typewriter. Keep letting the government dictate what you hear. Next, they'll put stickers on your ears." Even with that move, we got him in anguish because we'll learn sign language. We can't be stopped. The last line I want to share is actually much bigger than just the Ghetto Boys because the point they make applies to Southern hip hop and really rap music from anywhere other than New York or California. This being, "We're from the motherfucking South. Now what was this bullshit about? That we had to be from Cali or New York? Anybody can make it that got heart. Trench coats and gangster hats for my back. Anybody around me has got to pack." The instrumentals on here were handled by a number of names, which include Willie D, Scarface, and Bushwick Bill themselves, as well as some other talented producers like James Smith, John Beta, Johnny C, Roland, and Simon. There may not be any features or guest appearances from outside rappers, but it's kinda like Enter the Wu-Tang or 36 Chambers, where I really don't think there could feasibly be less of a need for any outside MCs. I've also neglected to mention the one song from We Can't Be Stopped, which very well may be the single most iconic track in Southern hip hop period. That, of course, being Mind Playing Tricks on Me. It's endlessly impressive that an act this early to gangster rap was able to push it forward even further through this masterpiece of storytelling. Every single verse on that song is instantly recognizable and full of quotes, and each member does a stellar job of painting anxiety, paranoia, and delusion, which is capped off by the legendary Bushwick Bill finale, where he details a story of him and his homeboys jumping a perpetrator on Halloween night, only to find out that both his friends and their victim didn't exist and were just hallucinations of his. I could go on about this song and the album it accompanies all day, but for my three overall favorite tracks, I definitely have to choose Mind Playing Tricks on Me, Chucky, and Fuck a War. When it comes down to honorable mentions, I'd probably go with Homie Don't Play That, I'm Not a Gentleman, Gotta Let Your Nuts Hang, Ain't With Being Broke, Quickie, The Other Level, Trophy, and Another African American in the Morgue. Thank you for watching my 180th video. Next time we're looping back around to more modern albums from the 2010s. And we're going to start off with what very well may be the rarest and most expensive LP in my entire collection. So check in for that modern holy grail coming up, and if you enjoyed, be sure to like, subscribe, and let me know what your favorite songs off this Texas hip-hop masterpiece are. Don't forget to have a great day, and I'll see you next time, okay? Alright.
Who would do such a thing? Look, I stand in the flame of a feeling we call pain. Father's Day mug, little hand shaped of clay. Carrier planes flew overhead in pockets.